So there's a subcategory of the E2 investor visa that a lot of people don't know about, and it can be particularly beneficial to somebody that doesn't have funds to invest to qualify for an E2 investor visa. And the subcategory that I'm referring to is called the E2 essential employee. Now, this can be a fantastic option for certain people. I think you're going to get a lot of value from this video, so make sure to stick around. So as I mentioned, there is a subcategory of the E2 visa called E2 Essential Employee, and this can be a fantastic option for certain people. Let me back up and explain a little bit about the E2 Investor Visa. If you're familiar with my channel at all, you've probably heard me talk about this visa on several occasions because it is a tremendous visa option. The E2 visa is a non-immigrant visa that allows certain people to make an investment in a US business so they can start a brand new business in the United States, or they can, in some cases, purchase an existing business. And based on making that substantial investment in a business in the United States, they can qualify for a visa, in this case, an E2 visa, to be able to direct and develop that business in the United States, to essentially be able to operate that business in the United States. Now, again, this whole concept of an E2 investor visa hinges on making a substantial investment in the United States. What is substantial, you might ask? Well, it's a very complicated kind of analysis, but in many cases, an investment of $100,000 or more can qualify. It's not as simple as that, but again, to simplify this, in many cases, an investment of $100,000 or more can qualify. However, a lot of people don't have $100,000 lying around to qualify for an E2 investor visa. So for those people, they should know that there's a subcategory, again, called the E2 Essential Employee. And this is a very beneficial category because it can allow the E2 business to sponsor certain E2 essential employees to work for that business. And in many ways, the E2 essential employee gets many of the same benefits that an E2 investor would get without having to make an actual investment in the business. Rather, the E2 essential employee can essentially take advantage of the investment that has already been made by the E2 investor. So now I'd like to just cover some of the requirements to qualify as an E2 essential employee. For one, the E2 essential employee must have the same nationality as the E2 investor. So if the E2 investor is Canadian, the E2 essential employee cannot be Pakistani, for example. The E2 essential employee must also be Canadian. So, if the E2 investor has Canadian nationality, then the E2 essential employee must similarly have Canadian nationality. If the E2 investor is Pakistani, the E2 essential employee must similarly be Pakistani. They cannot be French, for example, without having nationality or citizenship to Pakistan. So hopefully that's clear. The nationalities, the countries of citizenship must match between the E2 investor and the E2 essential employee. Additionally, the E2 essential employee must be coming to work for the E2 business in a supervisory, executive, or specialized knowledge capacity. The individual can't just be coming to the United States to do very basic work. So the E2 essential employee visa is for workers with specialized skills essential to the E2 business. If the work that the E2 business calls for you to perform in the United States is very basic work that is pretty much like unskilled labor, it's unlikely to qualify for the E2 essential employee visa. Now, some other benefits to discuss regarding the E2 essential employee visa. If you get your E2 essential employee visa, your spouse can similarly qualify as the spouse of an E2 essential employee, and your children can also qualify for their E2 visas in some contexts if they're unmarried and under 21 years old. Additionally, the spouse of the E2 essential employee gets work authorization to work in the United States. So as you can see, there are some tremendous benefits. Additionally, in various contexts, the E2 essential employee visa can be renewed. So there are a ton of benefits to this visa category. And what's interesting is that many people don't know about it. Now you get to know about it. Another important point that I want to mention. So you might be wondering, how does USCIS or the consulate that's reviewing the case determine whether the individual's work satisfies the requirements as an E2 essential employee? Well, oftentimes when you prepare an application for an E2 essential employee, you prepare a detailed job description that highlights the duties that this individual is going to perform, the experience required, and various other important details to help demonstrate that this individual is going to be performing a role that satisfies the requirements of an E2 essential employee. So again, what's interesting about this visa is that it can be a very powerful option for certain individuals, and a lot of people don't know about it, but now you do. So I hope you learned a lot from today's video. As always, we're here to empower our audience with knowledge. So the more people that can watch this video that can benefit from this information, the better. If you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you can be in the loop with all the videos that we're posting. So again, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next video.